Again, guys, welcome to Definity Esports, the awesome program of Learning League. It is L3RD, the bird, getting in some words with the all as usual today. But I just wanted to say thank you for coming in today. For those who actually came in, for those who haven't heard, again, we do Learning League every Tuesday at 2 p.m. But 2 p.m. EST. But it is really cool show that demonstrates some things about the game. And next week's show is going to be really important. But this week's show is not. I mean, not to say less, is not as or not to say the least as it's not greater importance per se, because we're actually going to be looking at a whole game, actually going from top to bottom, from the beginning to the end, about the whole lane phase and what to do after the lane phase kind of thing. Because mostly what we've been talking about is just separate instances of the game, like the solo 80 or 80 bot or middle or solo top. Now we're actually talking about the whole thing in general. It's really going to be kind of interesting to see, but also it is also pretty much just encompassing, wrapping up what happens in the game. And here with me is going to be one of our favorite people. It is going to be Trovera. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. Again, glad to be on the show once again, joining you. It's always an honor, and just looking forward to the match.
Yeah, definitely, indeed. We're gonna be I think it's one of my friends. He is in a 1600 elo match, so it's gonna be pretty fun to see. But have you experienced it where you kind of were up against a really high ranked elo person during even in a normal game, or even in a elo rank where you can see like a difference in play or so in the players that you see?
Yeah, definitely. When I used to main mid, I think it's the most visible in mid, or maybe even top lane, where you can really see it from that solo player's perspective of what they do, just based on their movement or how aggressive they are, things like that. So especially come mid game, I think it really shines from even just a single player. So it's definitely things you can notice from opposing players or even on your own team.
Yeah, definitely, indeed. And we're about to be getting into this game really quickly. Again, guys, do check out the sponsors, Defending Esports' BenQ, Antec, Zowie, Gear. But here we go. Actually, okay, I need the sound. That's what I want. Yeah, I need music. Okay, so right now we're going to be talking about this game. One of my friends, Taz M Devil, is pretty cool. He's going to be letting me to spectate his game. But we do have somebody that we all know, hopefully, from the ESL. If you guys know who FLG Hawkeye is, he is a shoutcaster, so he's a pretty cool guy. So we're gonna see him play some Fiora. But first things first, what do you look out for in the beginning of the match, like from the get-go?
I mean, in the very beginning, of course, the first thing you want to decide, especially these days in the current meta, is does your team want to invade or not? You want to match up kind of your level 1 skills, and the most important thing at a level 1 invade or defense at your jungle is the amount of CC you have, which is why teams with Blitzcrank or Alistar are always favored in such a matchup. So you want to see if you have the burst along with the CC, and then kind of lay it out. If you want to play defensive, as you see kind of the purple team doing here, you can kind of spread out and guard all the jungle entrances, or you can also just be grouped up. If you're positive they're going to invade, it might even be better to be grouped up to kind of counter them out once they try to get aggressive.
Yeah, definitely. I was about to say, jungle is really important from the get-go. If you have a really bad start for a jungler, say like a Mumu, say they got invaded upon, because Mumu is very blue dependent. If you actually started off there and they invaded there and they actually got them killed, it would deny Mumu so much time in the jungle. So that's really good to actually protect or communicate where you want to go with your jungles. So really quick, we do have both people starting at blue. What's the benefit of starting at blue buff instead of red buff? Or the benefit for either one?
Well, for blue buff, as you mentioned, certain champions, of course, are very mana dependent, such as Mumu in their jungle clears, so you want to get that mana, but you want to remember that it also gives cooldowns, so people who need to spam certain abilities to get through the jungle, for instance, Alistar benefits from both very well, so does Udyr, even if it's just a slight cooldown benefit, you can go back and forth between the stances and not worry about your mana, and so that's the benefit of blue buff, but oftentimes why people go red buff is if your champion is not that mana dependent. famous one would be Shyvana or Lee Sin. You could go for that earlier aggressive level 2 gank when you get the red buff and you come in and you have that early true damage on top of your slow, which is so devastating at level 2 because some of the lane people will still be level 1 when you come into the lane.
Yeah, definitely. The level 2 ganks are very, very notorious for Lee Sin. I mean, you can do it with all the other junglers. Technically, you could do it with Udyr, you could do it with even the Mumu, really, but they're just not as effective as, say, per se, Lee Sin, who does have the close gapper, or Shyvana, who can, you know, just get in there and actually just hurry up his speed into the jungles. Really quickly, I was about to say, even though if you do take a level 2 red buff, is it a good time to actually start counter jungling as well, or do you just wait till a later time for that?
I mean, it heavily depends on the champion matchup, but if you know for a fact that you have a generally stronger clear time and or that you can win a like level 2, level 3 scrimmage between like just one people or the junglers, 1v1. Actually, early aggression in the jungle might even be great because a lot of people aren't prepared for it in the lane, especially if your lanes or if the enemies are pushed out, then you can go into their jungle and they'll need to take more time to react. So you can go in, maybe just take one camp like the Wolf or the Wraith camp, because those small camps also respawn shorter. So depending on how the routes go, you could go and take the Wolves even if you think that's safer. And generally it is because at least at level 2, most people don't expect you to be at their Wolves and they're at their side of the red buff. So you can go in, take Wolves, and come back out.
Gotcha, gotcha. Really quick, we do see a gank over here at top, but right now Udyr's at level 3. Like usually when you're out of the jungle, is it pretty much this certain time? Like when you clear all your camps, do you just go straight up for a gank, or do you have to wait out? Like is that dependent on the player as well, or?
I think a general rule is to look at the lane you're closest to that you end in. So generally, if you start at blue and go through red, when you finish the camp, just look at your top lane. If the enemy's pushed out, you can usually try for a gank. Of course, certain champions don't have much CC at that early, so they may want to shy off, but at least you get some pressure down, so it is a good idea to check.
Yeah, definitely, indeed. So right now we're in a lane phase. Lane phasing is pretty much, the part where everyone tries to build up to the core items, but, right now we did see just first blood just happen, so we're going to see that happen where Udyr's going to go try to come up top and kind of cover. But right here, actually, yeah, we're trying to see Udyr cover. What is the point of Udyr going actually to top, even though his lane partner just kind of died?
Well, for one thing, he could pick up a free kill depending on how unprepared, like if they didn't have mana or health, we see Hawkeye getting very low, that could pick up a free kill, but at the same time, you can deny them the free time to go back and buy and come back, because usually when you kill your lane opponent, the goal is to push out the lane so that they're denied a minion wave, and then you want to port back during that free time. But if you at least harass them, they're going to waste their time running away from you, and then the lane will reset.
And that gives the advantage to your partner again, to your lane partner, either you be top, middle, or bot. Really good stuff from the Udyr right there. But also, kind of interesting to see that the lane phase is just kind of just chilling out. Like, what do you expect out of the lane phase usually during this whole game? Well, not during this whole game, but just in general in League of Legends.
As you mentioned, lane phase is where you want to try to build up as much as you can towards your core items. So you want to, or at least especially in bot lane, where the AD carries are generally late game carries, you want to extend it as much as possible. So you want to just maximize your creep score. So you want to kind of be passive in most cases. Of course, for instance, we see the Graves-Leona combo, a very well-known kill lane combo, where you want to kind of mix in the aggression. But I would say at least coming from the carries, you want to see maximum creep score. You want to just make sure you're always on top of your creep score more than the aggression. And if it's a duo lane, such as bot lane commonly is, you want to leave it up to your lane partner to lead the aggression, and you can react to that. But generally it becomes pretty passive unless you clearly can snowball, unless you know you can clearly burst someone down instantly. You want to maximize creep score as much as possible, because the lead you get in that is more than you think. A couple minions add up per wave, and it turns into 200, 300, 400 gold lead very soon.
Yeah, well, I think the amount is it's 15 creep score to pretty much 1 kill. So if you're down by 15 creep score, it really hurts or hampers you. And we're gonna see Taz going to be going back again. But this server is actually pretty low on their creep score. I mean, he does have to kill over server right now too. So, I mean, yeah, trying to keep that down is really, really beneficial. And how do you do that actually to a carry if ever you're facing someone, say like Gragas and Fizz right now? What does Gragas have to do to kind of deny Fizz of, you know, CSing getting that gold?
So in all lanes, the #1 answer is to push it out so that the tower starts hitting your minions. So the enemy tower starts hitting your minions, so it makes it harder for them generally to last hit, as the tower puts out a lot of damage, so they need to kind of compensate for that and time their attacks even better. Especially for mid lane, it works out because you can push out and then go to either side lane to gank, to continue your advantage. Bot lane, it's oftentimes not as crucial because AD carries do have generally their skill set allows them to farm quite well under the tower, but it's still better for you to push out and go back and buy while they're still stuck at the tower trying to catch up in CS.
For sure, definitely, definitely. I was also going to say, you know, lane harassment, it kind of helps out trying to, you know, push it out, or push out slash push out your opponent. Like you just saw there, Fizz try to get a gank with Leona, but pretty much just got all the damage down onto Gragas that he could. But it just really, you know, pushed him out so that Fizz can actually get some resemblance of a, you know, CSing time, which he did kind of take. But now that Mobile Nader, I guess that's his name, the Gragas player just comes back in. Fizz kind of has to be passive because he has no mana and can't do anything else to kind of harass or even, you know, damage his other lane opponent right now. Right now, jungle, you don't really see a lot of activities. So what are they kind of looking forward to doing during this phase where it's just really early in the game? So,
for junglers like Amumu who get such better gank potential at level 6, you want to try to farm as much as you can as fast as you can to get to level 6 so you can have a much more successful gank. In terms of Udyr still having not as much action as you normally might see, you kind of just want to base it off of your lane. If your lanes are all winning and they don't need any extra pressure particularly, then you can just continue to farm so that you don't fall behind and maybe even go for more aggressive counter jungling than you normally would. But the jungler, that's why the jungler has so many responsibilities, because so much of what the jungler does is highly dependent on what the result of the lanes are.
Definitely, because if the lanes kind of fail, then the team kind of fails. And if the jungler is part of it, I mean, sadly, in front night, like you'll see in solo rank or even in this early rank too, like you'll see that, you know, most of the time the jungler gets often blamed if you guys lose because, you know, they didn't help the lanes early enough. But usually, you know, if the lanes are actually doing well, that means your jungler is doing well supposedly, right? So
right, yeah, it goes back and forth.
So it's really dependent on the jungler to kind of set the tone, but it's also dependent on the lane people to not even give them the advantage to actually set that tone.
Yeah, definitely.
We're going to go into a little bit of a skirmish. I mean, we saw that dive over at bot from middle, and when mid has an advantage, what do they usually do? I think the roaming was pretty good from that mid lane. Wow, that dive from Taz is really interesting. But yeah, what do middles usually do once they have an advantage?
Once you have the advantage, you definitely want to push out, as we mentioned earlier, pushing out, harassing. At the same time, you want to roam with a purpose. So at this point, it's about we're seeing it past the 10-minute mark shortly. So depending on how prepared your bot lane is, you could go for an early dragon, or if your jungler has enough DPS. Damage per second, then you could actually do it with just the middle lane and they won't suspect it as much as if, say, the whole bottom lane disappeared. But you want to focus on the objectives, maybe stealing the enemy blue. Of course, if your top lane is in a lot of trouble, you may go for like a triple gank with your jungler, so both jungler and middle lane showing up for a gank, or I guess that would be a double gank, excuse me.
Yep.
But going for that, so, you know, middle lane then can take on some of the burden from the jungler to keep an eye on the side lanes and assist. But the biggest things I would say would be to keep a lookout on the enemy blue buff, as it benefits you and hurts the enemy mid lane if they are a AP carry traditionally, and also looking out to help with dragon.
And it looks like that's what Udyr is doing right now, trying to take some resources away, but just kind of getting in there for no reason. But we're going to see if they're going to go right onto Fiora right here. But yeah, the Gragas right now has 77 CS compared to Fizz's 40. I mean, Fizz is kind of like a LeBlanc. He just goes for kills, kind of. It's, you know, not really rotating, and that's what I would like to see right now. But we do see the VR going to be taking down the Udyr right here, and it's going to be really, really, really strong. Actually, wow, that Mumu actually died instead of the Uter, but that's cool. Same thing with Hawkeye right now. He is at 61 CS to 34 CS. Comparably, Garen is kind of a mobile champion, kind of not really. But what do you think, or do top lanes usually roam as well, or do they just do it or do they just stay top, like say? I know the moniker of CLG NA's top laner before was Saint Vicious, or not Saint Vicious, Hotshot, and just farms up all day over top, doesn't care about the team, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely is champion dependent. Certain ones are just shine better at pushing and actually continuing to pressure the lane opponent, especially if the lane opponent is someone who could, potentially come back late game. Like, for instance, Nasus and Irelia, you want to keep that pressure up. You want to try to hold back on taking the tower, or if you choose to take the first tower, you want to carry some wards and continue to pressure them so they don't ever have a chance to come back. But, for instance, if you're a really aggressive top laner with some CC, say Riven. Riven has the ability to either roam in the enemy jungle, help with some ganks mid lane, or continue to pressure top. But generally, you see top laners, if anything, roaming into the enemy jungle, taking double roams. We saw that become famous when M5 started pulling it off with Shyvana back at IEM Kiev, and that's when the meta really shifted towards that mobile top lane. Of course, these days it still does go back and forth, but I would say you want to just look at your kit. For instance, Teemo, a great pusher, and has great vision with his shrooms, so he is better off really just staying top lane and continue to pressure that lane and pushing it so that the jungler doesn't have time to react to Dragon or bot lane gank.
Yeah, definitely, indeed. I just saw my screen just leapt out really quickly, but we did see a really good gank by Mumu. Mumu actually got, or Mumu's partner, the Sivir, actually got taken down by really great play by Taz. But we're about to see probably a Dragon attempt at this time. Is this usually the time to actually probably take Dragon, take whatever resources? But when is a good time to actually take Dragon? This objective right over here.
When it comes to Dragon, the easiest way to take it is if your bot lane is winning. That way your bot lane has the freedom to push out and come, and the enemy bot lane won't be able to react because they know they'll lose a skirmish when it's a fair fight in numbers. And also, that way the bot lane AD carry can help with a lot of the damage to take it down quicker. Of course, depending on skill sets, we do sometimes see much earlier dragons. Of course, during the OGN championship, or OGN champions, the whole tournament, we did see that level 1 dragon. Sometimes we'd see generally even earlier dragons than normal. But around the 15-minute mark, you do want to see some focus on dragon, at least pressure it, maybe bait out a fight if your team is in the lead. So if AD bot mid lane, or if AD bot for your team is winning, but then the enemy mid lane is absolutely dominating, you do want to kind of watch out, because they could come in and burst and steal dragon even before you can get the smite off, or even force you to reset. But you want to put the pressure on so that they're distracted, so that their jungler now has more to worry about.
Yeah, definitely, indeed. We do see Leona actually support riveting top and going middle and doing some really interesting roaming. I mean, it is kind of an advanced thing, that the roaming technique of actually a support roaming. But do you usually see supports roam out, or do they just kind of stay with their lane partner like we see over here with Lucky, Booger, and Nilotus?
Especially the lower bracket of the elos, you don't see it often, and it's much more popular, of course, with aggressive supports such as Leona or Blitzcrank. People like Soraka, unless your lane is dominating and another lane requires a lot of assistance in terms of sustain, the passive supports do tend to stay in lane. But aggressive supports, if you won your lane, if you have a couple kills, I mean, Graves is sitting at 4-1 right now, so if Graves can handle himself and just continue to stay ahead in CS, or at least stay even with the opponent, then it is beneficial for you to, again, take some of that burden off of your jungler and go ahead and assist with ganks.
Yeah, definitely, indeed. We do see his aggression down there. Gragas going to be rotating from middle, going down to the bottom, trying to get the kills. And he gets a really good kill onto Soraka. And yeah, something we always want to see, like really the rotation between middle, but we also see the miscommunication with middle as well, because he's not actually communicating there, trying to help out his team. And yeah, I mean, a lot of this game is about communication, right? You have to make sure that you know where everyone is and where everyone's at. And right now, let's see. really quickly, blue team, they have pretty good coverage on their kind of pathing in the river, while purple team does have like coverage at middle, but they aren't really communicating about that. Like, literally, we've just been seeing that Graves kind of get dove upon by a Mumu, by Gragas right there. Really quickly, if your team isn't communicating, is there a way to actually like say, can you communicate better, or sometimes you just kind of have to go slow and hopefully you just kind of watch out more for everybody else's lanes, even though you're like a different role?
I mean, of course, in solo queue, the person you can trust most is yourself, purely on the fact that you know yourself and you don't know the strangers. But at the same time, it doesn't hurt to ask, especially because, for instance, a lot of people have come from different backgrounds in calling someone missing in your lane. Of course, the most popular in the North American server tends to be MIA, but some people use SS if they have a background in Europe, or just MIS. And sometimes, new players especially may not know if that's a different acronym or such. So you can ask them, can you just kind of type MIA, or you can just take it upon yourself to say SS means it. Just learn it as quick as you can and get used to it. But I don't think it ever hurts to just ask nicely if you can maybe just open up better communication, ask for an extra ward. If mid is dominating and your side lanes are struggling and mid lane just seems too focused on killing his lane opponent again and again, you can just ask, hey, can you put a ward next to their race so we don't get ganked by their mid while you pressure him, things like that. It's always better for someone to open it up, because I think the tendency in any game when you're a solo persona versus a team is that people do kind of shy away from opening up communication because you don't know what to expect. So if you're the one brave enough to open it up, oftentimes you will be pleasantly surprised. And at the very least, what can happen is you can just go back to trying to learn it upon yourself, to trying to ward better upon yourself.
Yeah, definitely. If warding is something that we've talked about and stressed about before, I mean, we see it right now. Purple team's warding pretty strong right now, pretty strong. While blue team not really strong as well. Like we were just saying right before this, blue team actually had really good coverage. They just kind of had their wards refresh. And I do see that the timer on this is actually at 23 minutes, and it actually ends. So I'm guessing that is a surrender. But I mean, it is 12-5 on the kills right now. So really quickly, is there anything else? Like, is there an actual end to the lane phase per se?
I mean, there's no clear-cut end, of course. Especially in solo queue, there may be sometimes either a top lane or an AD bot carry who pretty much stays in their lane the whole time and farms it up, and that can work out. But generally, what people tend to refer to as the end of lane phase is, maybe a tower goes down and Dragon has been taken 1 or 2 times, and the other team has already had the freedom to roam around. Then at least you want to be aware of that. Of course, you may want to farm up if you're an AD carry, but maybe the support can help to roam around. And especially once Baron has spawned, that's when you really want to be aware, especially if the enemy team can go for an early Baron, or if not, at some point after the 20-minute mark, you want to keep your eye on there. Come 30 minutes, if Baron hasn't been taken, but you show up bot lane because the opponent isn't there, you need to be thinking they see me here and they will probably know that the Baron fight will be a 4v5. At the same time, if you have the lead, you want to keep a lookout for someone going for free farm bot lane, and that's your chance to get a relatively early Baron.
Gotcha, definitely, indeed. So, actually, yeah, do you have any other things about the lane phase, like early game, anything else that you want to mention before this?
No, I think we pretty much covered it all. Better ward coverage and communication especially is very important during the lane phase.
Yeah, definitely, indeed. And we're going to go to the second part of the show. Again, guys, this is D-eSports' Learning League, Episode 6, from the beginning. So we're going to go from the beginning into another game where we're going to be looking at the after lane phase, the supposed lane phase early game, into the middle to late. So be right back, guys. I'll be ready. Do you guys actually want to know who wins? Let's see. I'm pretty sure that the blue team or purple team wins because they're kind of up ahead. While this is getting kind of recorded and cut, but don't worry. Yeah. I'm not gonna say anything else about that. Yeah, purple team wins. No problem. Be back. L380.